Testing, 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 testing. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Hold that thought for a minute. Sorry about that. So once again, greetings, greetings, greetings to you all. My name is King Clifford Jefferson, a Senator of Godfrey, the fifth kind of Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. I am the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know here at the Third Typical English Church of England is Jesus Christ. All right. King Edgar the Peaceful is Jesus Christ, which I am the reincarnation of. I greet you in the name of the ancestors, uh, our predecessors, our forefathers, our martyrs, our saints, all those who tried to accomplish the objective. Okay, they tried to accomplish the objective or the task that each and every one of us has to accomplish. So this is why the lesson is called "What is your objective?" Is it concrete or abstract? Y'all always hear me always hear us use the word concrete and abstract. Always use it, right? We always talk about explaining the concrete versus the abstract. Well, today we're going to do it different. We're going to explain the abstract versus the concrete. All right. We always say, and I always say, time never was when man was not. If a life of time and man begins, the time when man will be no more. Okay. I always say, time never was when man was not. As the life of time begin when time begin, then the time will come when man will be no more. Once again, I'm gonna say it again. Time never was when man was not. If the life of time of man begin, the time will come when man will be no more. We know time is subject to space. All right. We know time is subject to space, which is called space time. And space time is everything that within which is in existence. Okay, based off mathematics. Mathematics, space is called space time or the universe. We know the universe represents everything which is in space and time under the same time continuum, past, present, and the future. Okay, the past, the present, and the future. We know that uh, a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. A noun is a person, a place, or a thing. So my question I pose to all you who are viewing this lesson and all those who should be viewing this lesson, and if you're not, then you should already know this. All right? You should already know this. Um, the question is, okay, if a noun is a person, place, or a thing, which came first? The person, the place, or the thing? View that from a concrete position and an abstract position. We know that nouns are person, places, and things. Okay? So do this lesson, you're going to find out which came first. In the concrete, it will be the place. Okay? In the concrete world, it would be the place. All right? Because how could you have a person and a thing without a place to put it in? Okay? How could you have a person or a thing without a place to put it in. Because a noun is a person, place, or thing. All right. And we know that when the person was put there in that place, along with other things, it was the last thing to be put there, was that person. Oh, that sounds good, don't it? Right? If a noun is a person, place, or a thing, and things and persons can exist without a place to put it in. Okay? And we know that place that the thing was put in is what we call earth. All right? And every other thing that came along within that place called earth, man, person was the last thing to be created. That meant that it was a part of evolution. Okay? And everything that evolved from the starting point, it was the last thing to be created. That person, in the concrete sense, not in the abstract sense. Okay? Not in the abstract sense. In the abstract sense, it was the person that was created first before the person, I mean, the thing or place. All right? In the abstract sense, it was the person that was there before the thing or the place. In the concrete, the uh, place was there before the thing or person. All right? Wrap that around your head. I always say, time never was when man was not. If the life of time begin, the time will come when there will be no more. Okay, we know that man was put in that place along with other things and was subject to what we call time. We know that when you have a place and you put something in it, that represents space. So that's called space time. Okay, according to mathematics. According to mathematics, we was not a part of the creation stage with things and places and persons that evolved in that space and time. We were already here before the creation of that place and that thing and that person that evolved after that thing and that place. Okay? Very important to understand that. In order for you to comprehend that, you must understand yourself from the original position using mathematics. Okay? Using mathematics. Okay? So we're gonna build these terms and gonna go over it and you're gonna get the concrete. All right. But the concrete of it will be based upon the abstract. Okay? Very important. So once again, I want to give honor to my ancestors, all right, for fulfilling their objective. I was able to fulfill their objective by way of what we call mathematics. Okay? Mathematics. Understanding mathematics. All right. I give honor to my queens, the Galveston from the House of Galveston. I give honor to my mother. I give honor to my father. I give honor to my grandmother. I give honor to my grandfather. I give honor to you. All right. I give honor to you. This is why we're here. Um, when you watch this lesson, uh, you are to use deductive reasoning based off the information that you're receiving from other platforms in regard to lifting that veil of ignorance. All right, which must be done by what we call a thought experiment, because they're using thought experiments to keep you under the veil of ignorance about yourself. Yes, they're using thought experiments to keep you under the veil of ignorance, and that based upon the concrete. Because every thought that you have, in regard to the faculties that were created for you to get an understanding or to know, is based upon concrete things. All right, physical things. All right, not abstract things. Because to you, abstract means nothing. All right, so it's very important for you to definitely comprehend what's being said to you today. All right. Without further ado, let's get started. Today's lesson is called, what is your objective? Is it concrete or is it abstract? This is tailored towards my previous lecture. So if you watch that lecture, this one will be mind blown. Okay? If you watch that lecture, this one will be mind blowing. Okay? Very important. If you watch the one before that, it will be extraordinary mind blowing. Matter of fact, any video that I do is absolutely mind blowing. Okay? So let's get there. Let me show you how mind blowing this information is, because this is the objective of the Third Typical English Church. All right? To speak to your mind. Okay? To speak to your mind. So let's define the word or the term objective from a regular dictionary. I'm gonna have fun with this. Object of your desire. What is the object of your desire? Synonymous object. A, something material that may be perceived by a sense. Okay? Something material that may be received by a sense. B, something, you hear that word? Not someone, something. All right? Not someone, something. When you don't know what something is, you'll be like, what's that? So now it becomes something. Okay? If it's not within your comprehension or knowing, you don't know what it is. So it becomes something, because if you knew what it was, it would be someone. Okay? It would be someone. So B, something that when viewed stirs a particular emotion, such as pity. So we know object creates an emotion. Okay? Object creates an emotion, something material that may be perceived by the senses. And we know senses works off emotion. All right? 2A, something mental or physical towards which thought, feeling, or action is directed. Something physical that is perceived by an individual and becomes an agent for psychological identification. A3, the goal or end of an effort or activity. Purpose, objective. Okay? B, a cause for attention or concern. These are the things we bring it to your attention. Our concerns, which should be your concern based off the objective that you were put here for. All right? 4, a thing that forms an element of or constitute the subject matter of an investigation or science. Okay? Did you hear that? A thing that forms an element of or constitute the subject matter of an investigative or science. 5A, a noun or noun equivalent, such as a pronoun, gerund, or clause, denoting to a goal, result of the action of a verb. All right? So the latter definitions that I read are the ones we're going to use to use in regards to the term or the phrase or the word objective. Okay? We're going to encompass all these definitions in preference to the term objective. Okay? Very important. Original position, often referred to as a veil of ignorance, is the thought experiment used for the reasoning about the principles that should structure a society based on mutual dependence. The phrase original position and veil of ignorance were coined by the American philosopher John Rawls but the thought experiment itself was developed by William Bigray and John Harsenil in earlier writings. As you can see in the visual depiction, according to John Rawls, that's in the box. Under this veil of ignorance, citizens make a choice about their society are asked to make them from an original position of equality. On the left side, behind the veil of ignorance, wall, center, without knowing what gender, race, abilities, taste, wealth, or position is in society that they will have. So many pretty much are starting off in ignorance. Okay? And then the right side of the wall, it says, Rawls claims this will cause them to choose fair policies, as noted elsewhere in the article. Philosopher and law professor Harold Anthony Lloyd argues that such a veil of ignorance is real rather than hypothetical, and drives to thoughtful egoists to degrees of altruism. Okay, of altruism. So let's look at the basic purpose of the original position, which is based upon the veil of ignorance. It says, in the original position, you are asked to consider which principles you select for the basic structure of society. Remember, this is a thought experiment that somebody put you in based off their experiment. So you have to experiment with what they got to get you out of it. Okay? All right? And that's not concrete because it will already be in place. That's abstract. So that means it has to be coming to existence. All right? Based upon your objective, which becomes the premises, which ultimately can become the conclusion. All right? In the original position, you are asked to consider which principles you would select for the basic structure of society. But you must select as if you had no knowledge ahead of time what position you will end up having in that society. This choice is made from behind a veil of ignorance, which prevents you from knowing your ethnicity, social status, gender, and crucially, in Rawls' formulation, your or anyone else's idea of how to lead a good life. This is the idea, is a concept. An abstract concept is what you call an abstract idea based off the veil of ignorance, which is the original position that they created for you, but not your predecessors, not your ancestors. All right? This in return comes a social contract or a social compact. All right? Which creates the body of politics that was based upon that mutual defense that was created from the experiment. Okay? From the experiment, which is the result of the conditions that you're in today. All right? That you're in today. So that is a result of a thought experiment. All right? A thought experiment. A thought experiment is a hypothetical situation in which a hypothesis, theory, or principle is laid out for the purpose of thinking through its consequences. All right? Very important. Let's go to the history. History of thought. The ancient Greek thought experiment was the most ancient pattern of mathematical proof and existed before Euclidean mathematics. Before Euclidean mathematics, we know Euclidean mathematics deals with what we call geometry, measurement, frame of reference, where the emphasis was on the conceptual rather than on the experimental part of thought experiment. So the conceptual idea was the actual idea that came from the thought experiment. Okay? That now rooted in Euclidean mathematics, which deals with everything that's subject to what we call space and time. Okay? Space and time. So do the thought experiment, it must be based on what we call mathematical proof. Mathematical proof. What is mathematical proof? Before we even look at mathematical proof, just to look up the term mathematics. All right. Matter of fact, no, let's deal with mathematical proof. Well, mathematical proof is simply a mathematical statement, which is what we call our proposition. All right, which creates what we call our premises, which brings forth a conclusion. All right. So we have to look at the term mathematics to be precise. All right. What does mathematics mean? Let's look at the term mathematics. Because we know the mathematics is going to determine the proof which created the body of politics, that which was based upon the social contract, which came through the thought experiment of the original position that they put you in. All right. Which is based upon concrete space or concrete existence. All right. Very important. Contrast what we call abstract space or abstract existence, because the abstract existence must be based off thought experiment, which is not subject to theories dealing with space and time. Okay? Space and time. Mathematics. Mathematics is a field of study that discovers and organizes methods of theories and theorems that are developed and proved for the need of empirical science, the highest knowledge. Okay? The highest knowledge. So, since it's the highest knowledge, that is the method of what we call deductive reason that we must use, because deductive reason is called mathematical proof. All right? Mathematical proof. Mathematics is a field of study that discovers and organizes methods, theories, and theorems that are developed and proved based upon what we call premises. All right? There are many areas of mathematics that include number theory, all right, study of numbers, algebras, the study of formulas and related structures, geometry, the study of shapes and spaces that contain them, analysis, the study of continuous changes, and set theory, presently used as the foundation for all mathematics. So this is an abstract, all right, theory. This is an abstract mathematics versus concrete mathematics. Because when you're dealing with, as I said, uh, plants, trees, cars, animals, these things are considered what we call concrete objects and not abstract objects. All right? Very important. They're considered concrete objects, not abstract objects. Mathematics is based upon abstract objects because it says mathematics involves the formulation, okay, of abstract objects and their application to make statements about the world we live in, which is called the concrete object, okay? It's called the concrete object. So the world we live in is called a concrete object because when you perceive it, you do it based upon your senses, and your senses is based upon, as we said, um, a sensory. Okay, a sensory. Mathematics involves the formulation of abstract objects. Abstract objects are called mathematical objects. They're called mathematical objects. You have to understand what's being said. And mathematical objects or abstract objects are abstractions that are not a part of what we call concrete objects. Okay? Very important. So what is an abstract object? An abstract object is a mathematical object. What is a mathematical object? Just look at it. Because we said a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. Okay? The person, based upon space and time, was the last thing to be created. All right? Based off the evolutionary process, whether you want to deal with it from concrete evolution or from abstract dimension. One dimension, two dimension, three dimension, or fourth dimension. We ain't in the fourth dimension, we in the three dimension. We came from the two dimension, which originates from the one dimension, okay? Prior to that one dimension, there was nothing but space. Wasn't no time yet, because time is based upon distance, okay? Calculation, a frame of reference, all right? Very important. So mathematics is the field of theory in lieu of what we call the thought experiment. It's based upon mathematical proof, okay? Mathematical proof is a mathematical statement, which is a proposition based upon the premises, which brings forth what we call a conclusion, which is based upon analysis, okay? Mathematics involves the formulation of abstract object, and we already read what the word object means, okay? We define the word object. We know what and we talk about abstract objects and concrete objects, okay? We know from concrete objects, we must make an abstraction from it through thought experiment, okay, to create our premises. Very, 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 very important for you to understand that. So an abstract object, we know an abstract object is a mathematical object. So they mean the same. So what is mathematical object? A mathematical object is an abstract concept arising in mathematics. An concept is an idea. Okay? A concept is an idea. Concept. Concept defined as an abstract idea. Okay? So based upon mathematics, object is an abstract concept, which is an idea arising in mathematics. And the usual language of mathematics, an object is anything that has been or could be formally defined, and with which one may do by deductive reasoning in mathematical proof. That's through proposition, which creates the premises, then creates what we call a conclusion. Very important. So what is the origin of the word mathematics? All right. So if you know a mathematical object is an abstract object and can only come based upon the premises through deductive reasoning. Okay? Deductive reasoning. All right? And we know that the reasoning is based upon that mathematical object, which is the abstract object, which you see here is what they call a tesseract. And the tesseract represents the fourth dimension. We're in the third dimension, okay? The fourth dimension is an extension from the third dimension, but not subject to space-time, but because space-time was subject to time and space, okay? Three dimensions is subject to time and space. Fourth dimension is not, okay? And the only way you can get to the fourth dimension is by way of what we call thought experiment, okay? A thought experiment, all right? To lift this veil of ignorance about your true existence, all right? Very important for you to understand that. So deductive reasoning, you know what that means. Now you know what abstract concept means, which is an idea, which is what mathematics is all about, okay? And the deductive reason, which brings forth the premises, which is conclusion, is the mathematical proof. Okay? All right? The proof that there is a fourth dimension. Okay? And we know it because if we go back to the noun, a person, place, or thing, based upon the abstract object, in order for the thing or the person to exist, that place had to exist first. All right. In order for the thing or the person to exist, the place had to exist there first. And in order for the place to exist, it had to be the space to put that place there. Okay? Which makes it subject to space time. In order for thing and person to exist, there must be a place there. And in order for a place to be there, there must be a space. And that is all subject to space and time. Because at one time, it was not there. I always say, time never was when man was not. If the life of time of man began, the time would come will be no more. So you have to understand that as a result of you not understanding time and space, where it actually originated from your original position, this is why you don't exist anymore. You're just an object, a thing. Human beings are objects or things. Things and objects are composed of what we call elements. All right, let's prove it. So, a mathematical object is an abstract object, which is symbolic of what we call a tesseract, the fourth dimension. Okay, the fourth dimension. Let's look up the fourth dimension before we just define mathematics. Because this is what you forgot. Remember, on the abstract object, all right, do the thought experiment, in order for the person, which was the last thing to come into existence based off the evolutionary stage, which is the first and second dimension, that space had to be created, all right, for that place to exist, for that thing and that person to come into existence. All right. And that it takes evolution. And that was not the creator. All right. Because in order for that thing or person, that thing or place to exist, some person or something had to create it. All right. Not by randomness, by predetermined ability. Okay. By predetermined ability. All right. So fourth dimensional space, i.e. the tesseract, i.e. the abstract object, i.e. the mathematical object, based upon the thought experiment, is a mathematical extension of the concept of three-dimensional space. Three-dimensional space is the simplest possible abstraction, all right, of the observation that one needs only three numbers called dimensions. So they forgot all about the fourth dimension. They just concentrate on the third dimension because that's the state you're in. As a result of what we call evolution from the first dimension to the second dimension to the third dimension, which is called space-time. All right? From your point of position and direction. Because point and direction come from the one dimension and the two dimension. All right? To describe the sizes, location of objects in the everyday world. All right, so everything in the everyday world is based off the concrete object and not the abstract object, because the concrete object is everything subject to what we call space time. When I say concrete, I'm talking about matter, mass, volume. Okay, mass, matter, volume. All right, this dealing with subatomic particles and on up. All right, we know below subatomic particle, you're dealing with quantumness, the minimum part of any physical property or physical body or object. All right, the fourth dimensional space is a mathematical extension of the concept of three dimension. A concept is a mathematical concept, which is an idea, okay, which is based upon what they said, mathematical object. Let's just read it again. A mathematical object is an abstract concept. So your thoughts determine if you make it to the fourth dimension. And that's based upon engrams, because engrams are memories from the past, which determines the present to get you into the future. And we know that those memories are stored in your biological tissue based upon biochemical and biophysical changes that are going on without you knowing it, because they're based upon an abstract concept, not a concrete concept. All right, the concrete concept goes into what we call elements. Okay, elements. I'm breaking it down for you. Let's deal with mathematics. If you know what fourth dimension is, we know what mathematical object is, which is the abstract object, which is the fourth dimension, which is the extension of the third dimension, which resulted from the first dimension, which was the first of all dimensions. Okay? The first of all dimensions. So let's define dimensions. In physics, or the physical body, all right, because a body is an object. All right. So in physics, we know that engram is based upon biophysics and biochemical messages stored in biological tissue. Okay. And tissue is what we call the plane. All right. It's called the surface. All right. So you must look below the surface. You must look within eternally and not externally, because the externally is subject to what we call space and time. Okay. Space and time. We didn't come from space and time. Only things that evolve come from space and time, because that was the process of its manifestation. Okay, we was here before that place was put here for persons and things to be put there. In order for the place to be put there, there must be space. Not space that already got some in it, but something empty to make space. Okay? It's called void. It's called vacuum. All right? It's called vacuum. In physics, not just in mathematics, the dimension of mathematical space or object is informally defined as the minimum number of coordinates needed to specify any point within it. This is called a frame of reference. A frame of reference or reference frame. Okay? In the concrete world, you might use a ruler or a measuring tool. Okay. In the abstract world, got to use this, your mind. Thus, a line has a dimension of 1D because only one coordinate is needed to specify points on it. For example, let's see the example. Everybody go to this box. Oh, let me see if I can find it better. This is the best example. All right, back up here. This is the best example I can give you that you will be able to comprehend. All right. Imagine the inside here is what we call voidness, vacuum. All right. We know ether permeates space by way of vacuum. Okay. We're going to define that in a second. I'm only letting you know because I understand it. Ether permeates space by way of vacuum where light can travel to. And we know light is called subatomic particles, massless particles. All right. So we know that space is void prior to matter, mass, or volume getting in it. All right. So and that's what you call organic baryonic matter. Okay. Organic baryonic matter, which is 4% in the universe. Okay. The human body is based upon 96% of organic compounds. All right. Which is oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, uh, uh, what is it? Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and some other and some others. And what is the other element? That's that 4% of organic matter. It's called melanin. All right. It is called melanin. We're going to prove it. Why? Because we know that when the plane was created, all right, the plane created from uh, uh, the what we call evolution. Its beginning point. Okay, because it started from nothing. Zero means nothing. All right, it means nothing. So when you put that dot there, that was the Big Bang. All right, this is called the Big Bang accretion. Where you're dealing from collapse of what we call a star or a collapse of a solar nebula. Okay, we know that our universe was created from a collapsed star, and we know that our solar system was created from a collapsed solar nebula, which is based upon accretion disk, which is called atomic molecular diffusion. Okay, which created what we call our space and time. So when you're looking in this box, we went from zero dimension to third dimension. All right. The point represents like if you got a piece of paper, when you look at that piece of paper, all right, it's void. All right. As soon as you put that dot on that piece of paper, that's called first dimension. So, point of contact. All right, or frame of reference. You draw a line that's linear. All right. We know that space is defined by its boundaries. Okay, space is defined by its boundaries. So we went from zero dimension to one dimension, representing a line. That line represents space, empty space. Okay, in the concrete world, not the abstract world. All right, because we know in order for that space to get there, it must be something there to put space. That's voidness, that's vacuum. When space got there, it was just empty space. Okay, that represents the one dimension. In order for there to be space there and to have get to the two dimension, it must be based on what we call the second dimension, which represents what we call a plane or surface. Okay, so from one to two represents empty space. There's space, but ain't nothing there. The only way space can get there is we move to what we call three dimension. Okay, three-dimensional space, which is the symbolic of a cube, symbolic but then held by what we call four cubes, four squares, not cubes but squares. All right, boundary by what we call parallel lines. A plane is boundary by what we call lines, linear lines. Okay, very important for you to understand that. That's zero dimension, one dimension, two dimension, three dimension. Because we know three dimension is subject to a two-dimensional plane. We live on a plane within the three-dimensional world. All right? We live in a plane in the three-dimensional world. The fourth dimension is subject to the three-dimensional world on a plane, but lacking mass, matter, or volume. Okay? Because it's not subject to space and time. Okay? It's not subject to space and time. Let's read it. In classical mechanics, space and time are different categories and refer to absolute space and time. The concept of the world is a four-dimensional space, but not the one that was found necessary to describe electromagnetism. The fourth dimension, 4D of space-time, consists of events that are not absolutely defined spatially and temporally, but rather are known relative to the motion of the observer, okay? The experimenter, the observer, from a thought experiment. So this ain't talking about concrete. This is dealing from abstract, and we're talking about an abstract object, which is fourth dimension. Okay? Fourth dimension, which is called the tesseract. All right? The fourth dimension. We're in the three-dimensional now. And the only way we can get to the fourth dimension is based off that time continuum. And that time continuum is those memories, those engrams of our biological, biochemical cells based upon the original position. What is the original position? It's the abstract object, the fourth dimension. And we know the fourth dimension represents space. All right? It represents space, but not subject to what we call three-dimensional space, but fourth-dimensional space. And that fourth-dimensional space is what we call ether. It's called ether. Let's get there. Let's prove it. Let's define mathematics. Once again, mathematics involves the formulation of an abstract object, which is a mathematical object, which is nothing more than a physical body or physical thing. Okay? So an abstract object is called what they say the mathematical object, which is called the fourth dimension. All right. And we know that the only way you contain the fourth dimension is through abstraction. Okay? Because you're dealing with abstract things. Abstract things are not concrete things because concrete things deal with things that are within the world, okay, that are subject to what they call space time. So you must make an abstraction in your thought pattern from your perception of how you perceive the world from your original position. All right? It's very, very important that you understand that. Very important. Mathematics involves abstract objects and their application to make statements about the world you live in now. These objects consist of either abstraction from nature or in modern mathematics, entities, you hear that? Entities that are stipulated to have certain properties called premises or axioms. What is abstraction? Let's define that. Abstraction in mathematics is the process of extracting the underlying structure, pattern, or properties of a mathematical concept, idea, thought, perception, removing any dependence on the real world. Remember, when the original position based upon the developed ignorance, you were supposed to, through a thought experiment, create something where you were mutually dependent upon it, but it must not be concrete. It must be abstract. And for that, you must use mathematical proof, okay, which is through deductive reason by creating the premises based upon your concept and ideas about the object or the body, i.e., the physical body and all physical body within space time, because that's part of what we call the elements. Okay? The elements. Element means member. Element means member. Okay? Very important. So abstraction is mathematics is the process of extracting the underlying structures, breaking it down. All right? Getting behind the equation. All right? Underlining the formula. Okay? What is the premises? All right? It says the underlying structure, pattern, or properties of a mathematical concept, removing any dependence on the real object with which it might originally have been connected. Okay, so in order for us to get to the fourth dimension, we must move our understanding from things dealing with the physical world, because that's what abstraction means. Okay, things that you call the real world, because that world ain't real. It's just your perception that resulted from the physical body, which acts off senses. Okay, your five senses based off transduction, which is the translation of incoming energy, which are messages, which are created to what we call an electrical stimuli or stimulus, which creates a signal. Okay, whether the signal is internally, i.e., what we call acoustic baryonic oscillation, or externally, which we call brain waves, okay, or brain oscillation. These are scientific terms that I'm using in the concrete world to break down the abstract world that you originated from, okay? Before it was a person, before there was a thing, and before there was a place, okay? Because we know that if the place was created to put that thing in person, then something had to be cognate. Something or somebody or some entity had to be cognate to do that, having a thought faculty, a cognitive faculty, a conscious faculty to predetermine the outcome through deductive reasoning. So we know that that person that's created along with evolution, all right, we know that that person is not real. Okay? that person that evolved, all right, came along with evolution. You didn't have an original beginning, all right? You didn't have no original start. Your start came with that veil of ignorance, okay? Your start came with evolution, all right? The planet was here before you. The trees were here before you. The animals were here before you. They got more right than human beings got, okay? Because they originated along with space time. But space time was created by somebody who created the space to put that place in. Okay? Very, very, very important. Let's go back to mathematics. Let's get into the etymology of the word mathematics. The word mathematics comes from the ancient Greek. Now, the Greeks was the one who said that the Ethiopians were the burnt ones, right? And we know the word ether means to incinerate, okay? To burn, to shine, okay? The only way you're going to burn and shine is by you learning who you originally came from your original position, because the Greeks were trying to tell you that you came from ether. You created the space to put that place in so things and persons can come in. And they came by way of what we call an experiment, because that was a thought experiment created by the creator, the experimenter. All right, man, this is good. The word mathematics comes from the ancient Greek matherma, meaning that which is learned. You don't know it yet, but you go learn it. What one gets to know, here's also study and science. Mathematics and science means knowledge. All right. The word came to have the narrower and more technical meaning of mathematical study, even in classical time. Its objective is related to learning or studious, which likewise further came to mean mathematical, in particular, meant the mathematical arts. Okay. In Latin and in English. All right. So written that so the Greeks had their own interpretation, all right, about the word mathematics, meaning that at one time you didn't know, but you gonna know, all right. But that can't be the case for us as English people around the 1700s, because it says the term mathematics when in Latin, because Latin goes back to, like we said, Rome, all right, Italy. All right, it says Latin, and in English, until around 1700, the term mathematics more commonly meant astrology or sometimes astronomy rather than mathematics. The meaning gradually changed to its present one from about 1500 to 1800. Did you hear that, y'all? This change has resulted in several mistranslations. For example, St. Augustine's warning that Christians should be aware of the meaning of astrologers and sometimes is translated as the combination of mathematics. The parent plural form English goes back to the Latin neuter. All right, neuter. We know that in Egyptian means God, based on the Greek plural, how do you pronounce that, which means roughly. All things mathematical. Although it is possible that the English borrow only the adjective, and form the noun, all right, after the pattern of physics and metaphysics. You hear that? Inherited from the Greeks. That's a lie, because the Greeks were studying from us. All right, because the ones they studied were those melanated, dark-skinned people who had melanin. Okay, we know melanin is an organic compound. We know melanin is able to convert energy, and we know energy is what we call light. And light is photon light, which resulted from astrobiology, which resulted from what they define mathematics in our time. Okay, very important. In the English, the noun mathematics takes a singular verb and often shortens to just math. Okay, so do the math. Let's do the math. So let's look at physical object? What is a physical object? Listen, y'all. In common usage in classical mechanics, a physical object or physical body, or simply an object or body, is a collection of matter within a defined contiguous boundary in three-dimensional space. Did you hear that? We're talking about physical objects and physical body. We're talking about our physical bodies, okay? Our human bodies. When you look up physical body, guess what? You get human body, okay? Physical body, human body. Human body, physical body. Physical body, physics. Physics, classical mechanics, subject to what we call the collection of matter as defined by the boundaries as set forth within the three-dimensional world, which is subject to what we call space-time. The boundary surfaces must be defined and identified by the properties of the material, although it may change over time. This is called phase transduction. The boundary is usually the visible. You hear that? Did you hear this? The boundary is usually the visible or tangible surface of the object. That's the skin. That's the boundary. The boundary is usually the visible or tangible surface of any object, any physical object, or any physical body. Okay? The matter in the object is constrained to a greater or lesser degree to move as one object. You hear that? This is called elements, all part of a set. Okay? These are called elements, all part of what we call a set. The boundaries may move in a space relative to other objects that is not attached to. Through translation and rotation, an object boundaries may also deform and change over time in other ways. Let's go a little deeper in this definition. Also in common uses, an object is not constrained to consist of the same collection of matter. You hear that? The object, the physical object, okay, or the abstract object, which is the mathematical object about the fourth dimension, which is based upon the Dart experiment, okay, about the original position. It said an object is not constrained to consist of the same collection of what we call matter, mass, volume. Atoms are part of an object may change over time. An object is usually meant to be defined by the simplest representation of the boundaries consistent with observation. However, the laws of physics only apply directly to objects that consist of the same collection of matter. Did you hear that? Of matter. Very, 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 very important. Because we're talking about the physical body, okay? The physical object, or just simply object or body, okay? Object or body. In physics, an object is an identifiable collection of matter. That's how the universe was created, by accretion. Collection of matter into what we call a massive object, all right? In the form of what we call a disk. All that's created through what we call wormholes, all right? Which may be constrained by identifiable boundaries and may move as a unit by translation or rotation in a three-dimensional space, okay? Each object has a unique identity, independent of any other properties. Two objects may be identical in all properties except position, but still remain distinguishable. All right. In most cases, the boundaries of the two objects may not overlap at any point in time. You're talking about the quantum self. All right. So the only way to know about the quantum self, you must have sense of the quantum self. Okay. Because we're talking about the physical body, and the physical body operate of what we call senses. All right. Senses. The common conception of physical objects, talking about us, included that they have an extension in the physical world. Talking about that silver cord. Although there do exist theories of quantum physics and cosmology which arguably challenge this. In modern physics, extension, we know of fourth dimension, extension of the third dimension, is understood in terms of what we call space-time. Roughly speaking, it means that for a given moment of time, The body has some location in the space, although not necessarily amounting to the abstraction of a point in that space and time, three-dimensional world. A physical body as a whole is assumed to have some quantitative properties as mass, momentum, electric charge, or conserved quantities, and possibly other quantities. All right, let's look at it. And common usage, talking about the physical body, the physical object, or the object or body. All right, that's what we're talking about. It says in common usage, that physical body or that physical object or just that object or that body is known by the application of senses. We know senses is a faculty that results from transduction through your five senses: taste, touch, smell, sight, which is what you use to preserve or examine your outside world, the external world, which you call 3D. What you call 3D, all right? Used through your senses. What are your senses? Let's define it. A sense in biological system used by an organism for sensation, the process of gathering information about the surrounding through the detection of stimuli. Although in some culture, five human senses were traditionally identified as such, namely sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. Many more are now recognized. Senses used by non-human organisms are even greater in variety and number. So that's abstract object based upon an object, mathematical concept. All right, due to what we call a thought experiment. During sensations, sense organs collect various stimuli such as sound or smell for transduction. Transduction is the conversion of the incoming message or energy and converting that energy into a stimuli or stimulus, which creates an electrical signal, which you interpret through internally or externally by way of transduction. And we know it either can be, like I said, by, excuse me, brain oscillation or what we call acoustic baryonic oscillation through matter of the surface of the epidermis, which is based upon the plane of surface which the information is stored, all right, in the biological tissue, which brings forth the biochemical and biophysical change of that body, okay, which causes what we call a phase transition, all right. Very, 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 very important to understand that the senses relate to your physical body, and the physical body is called a physical object or a physical body, or just object or body that may not be confined to the concrete world based upon your thoughts now. Okay? Why? Because it just said the physical body or the object, let's go back to physical object. We know it is related to the senses. But when you read up here, in common usage in classical mechanics, a physical object or physical body, or simply an object or body, is a collection of matter within a defined continuous boundary and a three-dimensional space. We know we're talking about mathematical object or abstract object. We know we're talking about perceiving it through mathematics, and we know mathematics deals with or defined prior to the 17th century as astronomy. And we know astronomy deals with the stars. And we know stars exist within space and time. And we know time is subject to the three-dimensional perception that you receive based off the thought experiment that you are now you choose to analyze through what we call deductive reasoning. All right? And you're not using that deductive reasoning because your understanding of your physical body or your physical object or just plain object or body is wrong. Also, in common uses, an object is not constrained to consist of the same collection of matter. Okay? So, physical objects that operate off senses is not constrained to consist of the same collection of matter. All right? Atoms are part of an object. Atoms are part of an object may change over time. Why? Because they're not constrained to the same collection of matter. Because the collection of matter is based upon two two dimensions, either the third dimension or the fourth dimension. Because anything with the third dimension actually originated from the fourth dimension, because the fourth dimension is outside of space and time. Okay, it's outside space time. How I know that? Let's prove it. Human body. The human body is the entire structure of the physical body. We call a human being. All right. The physical body or the physical object is composed of many different types of cells together to create tissue. All right. The surface and subsequently organs and their organ system. The tissue, i.e., the surface, protects the inner cell, okay, and protects the external cell, the tissue. All right. If you don't have the protected tissue, and we know the tissue for melanite beings came with the creation of light, because melanin is created from light. Okay, UV rays creates melanin. All right, and our skin complexion, which has melanin, has the ability to convert UV ray lights. All right, to chemical what we call chemical reactions, which helps us and assists us in downloading this information. No different than what plants do with chlorophyll, which acts as uh, 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 um, a medium for what we call photon light, which is called electromagnetic energy, to be converted into a chemical reaction by the chemical reaction by its chemical interaction. Makes it turns creates what they call photosynthesis, which creates carbon and which creates oxygen, and we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon. Why? Because the body, the human body, is not only made up of cells, but they are composed of more subatomic particles, which you call organic compounds. I mean, they're composed of organic compounds, which even goes down to what we call subatomic particles. Let's look at it right here. The human body. It didn't say the human being. It said the human body, or the physical body, or the physical object. All right, that you call a human, is composed of elements including hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, calcium, phosphorus. These elements reside in trillions of cells and non-cellular components of the body. Okay. The human body. The total mass of the human body is 96% mass, which is composed of these elements. And then the other elements, it says others. So what is the other elements that the human body is composed of outside of the organic compound that are composed of these elements? Because the human body, they said, is an element. Okay? It's made up of elements. All right? Very important for you to understand that. – 65% oxygen, 80% carbon, 10% hydrogen, 3% nitrogen, and others. So total that up, it comes to 96% of the mass of the human body. Okay? The mass of the human body. Just look that up. Look that up. Let's see. Right here. Let's see. Elements. About 99% of the mass of the human body is made up of 6 elements: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. So if that's the case, then that 1% is others. What's the other percent that you're talking about that the human body or the human physical object or the physical body is made of? Okay? Because it said the human body, not the human being, but the human body, and you leave the human out of the equation, you're just talking about the body. The body is made up of what we call elements. Okay? Elements. Okay? So if you understand it in the original position of your true state as through your cell lineage, you understand that the 99% of your mass is what we call elements, okay? Organic compounds. And melanin is a part of the organic compound, okay? Very, 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 very important for you to understand that equation, all right? Very important for you to understand that. Why is that important? Let's look up element. In mathematics, mathematics is what? Study of astronomy. Mathematics means astronomy, okay? And the only way you can study astronomy is through thought experiment, okay? Which study abstract objects, and abstract objects are mathematical objects, which is based upon the fourth dimension, things that are outside the third dimension, okay? Not within the third dimension or outside of the third dimension. And it said in mathematics, an element or member of a set is any one of the distinct objects that belong to that set. So if you understand mathematics, then you are indeed a member of that set of that distinct object. The object is the abstract object, which is the fourth dimension. Okay, not the third dimension, because if you don't know about this dark experiment about ether, then guess what? You're not going to the fourth dimension, because the fourth dimension is the extension of the third dimension that will substitute memory of the first and the second and the third, which you are in now. Without understanding that, you can't make a transition to the fourth dimension, because the dark process has now allowed that phase transition based upon you being a member, all right, a part of the set, hence the word in formula, writing A equals 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning that the elements of set A are number 1, 2, 3, and 4. The set of elements of A, for example, 1 and 2 are subsets of A. All right, we know 2 and 1 makes 3, and 3 and add one more to that represents 4. First dimension, 2 dimension, 3rd dimension, 4th dimension. Okay? So we know in mathematics, an element or member is of a set of any of the distinct objects, not concrete object, but abstract object. So what is your objective? Is it concrete or what we call abstract? Very important for you to understand that. Let's see why. So we understand mathematics. We understand mathematics is an element, is a member. So we know physical bodies. We know physical bodies are objects, and objects are elements. Okay. Objects are elements because in mathematics, an element is a member of a set of any of one of distinct objects. What is an object? An object, we already defined what an object is, and the object is based upon the object's objective. All right. What is the object objective? All right. Based off the objection, what you call the objective. Okay. All right. As a member, you must know the objective as a member of the element family, which was here before the state of evolution, which started from the elements. Okay? We started from the element, and the only way you can know that is based upon mathematics, which means you must understand astronomy. Not just after the star was created, but before the star was created. And for you to know that, you must understand what we call ether, because ether preemanates space for that space for that vacuum for light to travel through. All right, and we know that vacuum is void of what we call space, and space, as you define it here in the three-dimensional world, is volume, mass, and matter. Okay, volume, mass, and matter. So we define physical body, right? We define human body. Physical body and human body are one and the same because they are both composed of elements, all right, which are of the set of any distinct objects, of one of the distinct objects. And a lot of objects have different objectives, okay? All right? And if your objective based off the of the object is based upon your senses, then that's the wrong information and that's the wrong membership that you have. Because in order for you to understand true membership, you must understand the purpose of mathematics. All right. The purpose of mathematics is to understand mathematical objects, which are fourth dimensional, dealing with that which existed before time and space, which is a three dimension which you now are subject to. All right. That you are now subject to. All right. Where I want to go. Engrams. Engram is a unit of cognitive information imprinted, encoded in a physical substance, all right? Physical body, in the substance of a physical body. Engrams, which is cognitive, i.e. conscious. Engrams is a unit of cognitive, and cognitive is a conscious faculty. Allow you to be able to use the thought experiment, which is deductive reasoning, which create a proposition based upon the premises which bring forth a conclusion. Engrams is a unit of cognitive information imprinted in a physical substance, theorized, all right, which is a mathematical proof by a theorization. It's called theorem. To be the axiom, i.e. premises, for the proposition which forms that conclusion. To be the means by which memories are stored. So in order for you to have memories, you must know your past. All right? You must know your past before you came into this three-dimensional world. And if you understand it from the noun, which is a person, place, or a thing, and we know that human beings are things because things are what we call objects. Things are called objects. It's called something. Okay, something, or the sum of a thing. All right, or the sum of a thing. Very important for you to understand that. Something. If you don't know the name of something, right? If you don't know the identity of something, you call it, what's that? What's that? It's a string. I don't know what that is. It's something, but I don't know what it is. But it's something. So you have to identify what that something is without even knowing what it is to determine it based off deductive reasoning. So the only way we can do that is based on the memories, all right, that were stored in our biophysical and biochemical cells, all right, which is what's stored in the biological tissue in response to external stimuli. Okay, so the external stimuli is a faculty of what we call the physical body, which is based upon the senses, which acts off transduction, which is the interpretation of what we call brain waves or brain oscillation or what we call baryonic oscillation determines what type of information you receive and the interpretation of that message. Because neurosensory is not a cognitive faculty; it's a perception. All right, it's a perception. So when we understand our memories, then we must understand it as a phase transition, which is called a drunken walk, or what they call uh, uh, a drunken walk or a random walk. A drunken walk or random walk. Very, very important for you to understand that and to understand your biophysical self. Why is this important? Let's see. What is an object? What is an object? Abstract and concrete. Okay? And metaphysics, not physics, but metaphysics. The distinction between abstract and concrete refers to a divide between two types of entities. Oh, y'all better listen to me. Y'all better listen to me. In metaphysics, the distinction between abstract and concrete refers to a divide between two types of entities. Many philosophers hold that the difference has fundamental metaphysical significance. Examples of concrete objects, all right, objects or bodies, all right, include plants, human beings, and planets. While things like numbers, sets, and propositions are abstract objects. You hear that? So in order for you to be an abstract object, you must make that thought experience through what we call mathematics process through deductive reason, which can do numbers, all right, what we call equations, formulas. You can do it through understanding what we call the elements, which is part of a set of very distinct objects based upon the proposition, which can be an abstract object. And no abstract object will prepare you to the fourth dimension. Okay? There is no general consensus as to what characteristics marks the concreteness and abstractness are. Popular suggestions include defining the distinction and the terms of difference between the existence inside or outside of space-time. Did you hear that? The difference between inside and outside of space-time. 2, having cause and effect or not. 3, having contingent or necessary existence. 4, being particular or universal. And 5, belongs to either the physical or the mental realm or neither. Despite this diversity of views, there is a broad agreement concerning most objects as to whether they are abstract or concrete. So under most interpretation, all these views would agree that, for example, plants are concrete objects while numbers are abstract objects. Did you hear that? Okay? Did y'all hear that? Okay? So we know anything dealing with 3D, three-dimensional, space-time, are concrete objects, are not abstract objects. All right? And we understand that. We understand that that deals with persons and things and places. Because the place where the thing and the person lives all evolve from one dimension to two dimension onto 3 dimension, and now in order for you to get the 4th dimension, it can be subject to the plane 2 and plane second dimension and the 3rd dimension, because those planes involve the evolution of what we call matter, mass, volume. Okay, very important. All this is subject to what we call space time. What is space time? In physics, space-time is a mathematical model that fuses the 3 dimension of space and the 1 dimension of time, past, present, future, into a single 4-dimensional time continuum. What is time continuum? Continuum theories are models explaining variation of evolving gradual quantitative transitions without abrupt changes or discontinuities. In contrast, categorical theories are models explaining variation using qualitatively different states. Okay, let's go back to time. What is time? I always say time never was when man was not. If the life begin, then time will come, will be no more. We know time is a result of predetermined. When you start a clock, it's predetermined. Okay? When the battery runs out, it's game over. Time is the continued sequence of existence and events that occurs in apparently irreversible succession from the past through the present and into the future. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? It is a component quantity of various measurements, frame of reference, used to sequence events to compare the duration of events or the intervals between them. At the quantified rate of change of quantities and material reality, you hear that? Or in conscious experience, time is often referred to as a 4th dimension along with 3 spatial dimensions. Did you hear that? So time is really a 4th dimension because 4th dimension is an extension of the dimension which contain time and space, which is based upon 1 dimension, 2 dimension, and 3 dimension under the same time continuum. And we know time is based upon the past, which brings forth the present, which brings forth the future. So we know that as a noun, person, place, and thing, we know that the person was the last thing to be created, and the thing came before the person, and we know that the place was there before the thing or the person. All right, and we know the place at time did not exist because there was no space. It had to be space there to put it in. All right, which you call space time. So outside of space time, you're dealing with what we call vacuum, void of space. All right, let's look that up. Ether, in closing. According to medieval scientists, spelling including ether, aether, or ether are known as the 5th element of quintessence. It is the material that fills the region of the universe. Mathematics of space deals with universe. When you define mathematics in space, the term means universe. Everything containing space and time, energy and matter, point and position. Position and direction. Okay? 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, on the 4th dimension. The concept of ether was used in several theories to explain several natural phenomena, such as the propagation of light and gravity. Propagation of light and gravity. What is light? We know light is subject to the electromagnetic spectrum. And the electromagnetic spectrum is based on electromagnetic frequencies, all right, which goes from gamma waves to radio waves, okay, which all entails a message, okay, but evidence for the presence of such medium was not found. All right, let's move further. So it says, ether permeated space, providing a medium through which light could travel in a vacuum. Light traveling in a vacuum. Light is energy. Energy is a message. Message creates a stimuli. Stimuli creates a signal. And signal creates a sensory. okay, in the physical body. All right. But it said here, ether, which exists outside of time and space, i.e., the universe, i.e., the third dimension. So we're talking about the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension, being that it's not subject to what we call space time, must be that space that exists before that place, which is subject to space time, which result in what we call vacuum. Because what is vacuum? Vacuum in space devoid of matter. So that means there is some space that's devoid of matter, i.e., organic baryonic matter, okay, versus versus what we call anti-matter, because baryonic, what we call very ordinary baryonic matter is that which has mass, matter, or volume, versus or contrast to what we call ether, because ether permeates space, all right? That's void of matter by way of vacuum, and vacuum is space, void of matter. The word derived from the Latin adjective vacus, meaning vacant or void. So when you dealing with the person, place, or thing, which is a noun, we know that the person and the thing didn't come along to that place was put there. In order for that place had to be put there, there must be space. Who put that space there to put that place there? All right. It had to be by what we call um uh um not what they call randomness, but predeterminability. It was predetermined. All right. Predetermined. So we know that physics often discuss ideal tests resulted that would occur in a perfect vacuum, which they sometimes simply call vacuum or free space. What is this into that side within that free space? Free energy, which is what? 0 point energy. All right, ether. Below subatomic particles, which is called quantum physics, the quantum cell. All right, the minimum aspect of any physical property or object. Okay, very, very important for you to understand that, y'all, or else you will not be able to make this transition back home to the fourth dimension. Back home to the fourth dimension, because the fourth dimension is the abstract object based upon mathematical object, which is based upon mathematical concept, which is ideal to inform the physical body about the true essence of him, of who we are, and not based upon the senses. All right. So, in closing, the nature of properly human mathematics. I'll close out on this. Advanced continuous discrete model. This is an article by David Rule, published 22nd of March 2023. Just published. We claim that human mathematics is only a limited part of the consequence of the chosen basic premises or axiom. Probably human mathematics varies with time, but appears to have universal features which we try to analyze through what we call deductive reasoning, which is called mathematical proof. All right. In particular, the function of a human brain privileged concept, naming and short formulations. This leads to organizing mathematical knowledge structurally. We consider briefly the problem of non-mathematical science. Okay? Abstract. Oh, we read that. The function of the human brain is very different from that of an electronic computer. Various mathematicians have noted that in doing mathematics, the brain uses natural language, functions combinatorially, is slow, prone to error, has very limited working memory, is very highly parallel, and uses unconscious thinking. Inherited to mathematics is the fact that there are some very long proofs of theorems with short formulations. We argue that the way the human brain functions explains some feature of human mathematics, as opposed to listing general consequences of premises, i.e., axioms. In particular, the human brain privileges concept naming and short formulations. This leads to a structural organization of mathematical knowledge. A non-philosophical approach, and a natural for scientists to reflect on their handling of scientific problems. An example of this article by Jaffe and Quinn, the following note is modest attempt in this direction after earlier small contributions. For instance, we are concerned here with the finding of natural limitations to human scientific progress, and specifically in human mathematics. Studying such limitations involves estimating both human intellectual capabilities and the complexity of the things investigated. We are addressing here a philosophical problem, and we want to make clear why we want to stay away from the traditions of philosophical literature. A couple of citations for science may illustrate the problem. There is a popular appropriate quote attributed to C.F. Gauss. When a philosopher says something that is true, then it is trivial. When he says something that is not trivial, then it is false. A.N. Whitehead also wrote, the safest general characteristics of European philosophical tradition is that it consists of series of footnotes, as Plato, because we know Plato is where what we call mathematics originated from, based upon their thought experiment, not ours. The insight of philosophers have occasionally benefited psychists, but generally in a negative fashion by protecting them from the preconception of other philosophers. Without some guidance from other preconceptions, one could do nothing at all. It is just that philosophical principles have not generally provided us with the right preconceptions. You hear that? We know preconception, rooted from the word conception, rooted from the word concept, rooted from the word ideal. All right. My view is that philosophical literature uses concepts like understanding, thinking, meaning, existence, and consciousness, God, which refers to an introspective assessment of the function of the human brain. I prefer to make my own assessment, staying close to fact and away from philosophical tradition. Note that there exists is a well-defined mathematical concept to be used in a proper setting. We should also try to make sense in section in sec make sense in understanding a mathematical proof, i.e., a proposition or for based upon the premises which bring forth the conclusion. This is not the place to discuss delicate questions like Gödel's proof of existence of God. So this is in questions in regard to God. Do mathematics, and we know you're dealing with mathematics, the origin of the word goes back to astronomy. Learning about astronomy is learning about God. Okay? In practice, many reference understanding, meaning, etc., are without ill consequences and hard to avoid. I think, however, that it's important to notice that some arguments like cognito ergo sum are based on introspection to be treated as psychological evidence. Such arguments are not to be used as logical proof. In closing, all right, so let's see. So in closing, from the original position, the only way you can lift this veil of ignorance is through the thought experiment. Okay? By understanding abstract objects for for abstract objects, for abstract things, to get an abstract resolution. All right? Because you are an abstract thing. Yes, you are. You are something that originated on this planet. Just like the prokaryotic cell did not originate on this planet. It was considered an extraterrestrial, and it said it was the ability to give life to evolved human life form. We know the evolved human life forms was the predetermined uh, uh, um, uh, rationale or the predetermined axiom or premises for the conclusion of what the fourth dimension, which is the extension of the third dimension, which is the end result of the stopping of time. Okay, the stopping of time. All right. As I said, time never was when man was not. If the life of time begin, the time will come when man will be no more. And we know time is subject to space, and space is subject to, as we said, uh, 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 abstract things or concrete things. All right, abstract things or concrete things. So, what is your objective in understand the abstract thing or concrete thing? And if it's abstract, you better understand astrology. Okay. So I'll close on that, and I'll leave the floor open for uh, questions. No, a database is not an example of the fourth dimension. A database is based upon a computer, and the computer only uh, programs or encode things that it's using what we call the Dart experiment. Okay, and the Dart experiment is based upon concrete objects. Okay, a database is a concrete object. It's a system that records information. Okay, it's a system that records information that exists based upon the external world that you see that data being put in. Okay, versus the data you see not being put in that can only be upcoded through um uh what we call it transduction. And transduction is a way to for immortality. And immortality comes to what we call either mental uploading or digital uploading. That database is based upon digital uploading, which is trying to take the place of mental uploading, which is the fourth dimension, not concerning what we call space time, which is based upon position and direction, based upon that frame of reference, which you call data. Okay? What you call data. Does that make sense, Countess? Remember, when dealing with person, place, or thing based upon the third dimension, person, places, and things are actually objects. Okay, they're actually objects that are confined to space, time, because it was a time when they did not exist. All right, that's three dimension. That was the unfoldment of evolution. That was the starting point. All right, zero dimension. All right. So you're looking at the noun, person, place, or thing. And if you receive yourself as a human being, then you are the last thing to be created. So how could you be the creator? If you was a part of the experiment based upon an evolutionary plan, which you came to by way of unfoldment through way of your creatic cell, which allow you to become multicellular, which was the code encoded in your cell. It's called DNA, which originated from the programming and the encoding that originated from the prokaryotic cell, which has the ability to transfer genetic material by way of what we call horizontal gene transfer and now vertical gene transfer. Does that make sense? I don't believe I understand it like this. It's just remarkable. Okay? So in closing, mathematics, based upon its definition, is the study of astronomy. Okay? And what is astronomy? In closing, astronomy. Astronomy is a natural science, so it's the natural science. It's the natural way of knowing things. It's a natural way of understanding who you are in your original position based upon the creation of special theory and general theory of relativity that deals with all things outside of space time and all things subject to space time. So astronomy is the natural science that studies celestial objects and the phenomena that occurs in the cosmos, hence cosmology. It uses mathematics, physics, and chemistry in order to explain their origin and their overall evolution. Objects of the interest include planets, moons, stars, nebula, galaxies, meteorites, asteroids, and comets. These are all abstract. Okay? These are all, parts of, these are all concrete because they're composed of matter, mass, all right, versus abstract, all right? Relevant phenomena include supernovas, explosions, gamma rays, bursts, quasars, blasters, pulsars, cosmic microwave background radiation. More generally, astronomy studies everything that originates beyond Earth's atmosphere. Cosmology is a branch of astronomy that studies the universe as a whole. So, in closing, what is the universe? According to mathematics, it's called space. Let's prove it. And I'll close out on this. This is your objective. This is our objective. This is the temple objective. This was our ancestors' objective who created the objective. Okay? Who created the objective. So once again, in mathematics, a space is a set, sometimes known as a universe, with a definition structure or relationship among the elements of that set. While modern mathematics use many types of spaces, such as Euclidean space, linear space, topological space, hyperspace, and probability space, it does not define the notion of space itself. We have to define that by going back into our original position as an element, all right, as part of the set of that distinct object, i.e., the fourth dimension. And with that, we here at the Third Trinitarian Church of England and the spiritual church, because this is a spiritual church. All right. That which was not made by hands. See you as we greeted you, as always, in peace. Archbishop, don't forget to throw that template if you haven't been done so already. With that, see ya.